Since this is the last session, let me thank the organizers, Omar, who's not here, and Juanpa and Albert, and last but not least, Nezi, for organizing a really good conference and taking good care of us. And then, let me jump into it. Thank you. So, managing a polarized structure change, bad title, misleading title, this is not going to teach you how to become a good manager. So, but it's very useful for us because we're going to talk about polarization, structural change, and what happens between managers and workers. The good news is, well, there's only one economic force driving all these things in the economy over time. Bad news is you have to kind of take the Lucas span of control model and disfigure it like sufficiently. We did the minimum necessary butchering, but we'll see. Of course, this joint work with Tim Lee, who happens to be here. He gave a seminar here on Wednesday. We were not coordinating. Bad managing, I guess. And then he's the real brain behind this project. So if you kind of like the idea, congratulate him. If you don't like the idea, that's because I'm giving a bad presentation. It's not a statement of the quality of the idea. Okay, so let me just start with 3 sets of data. And then I'll talk about what we do and the model. And some of the facts are fairly well known, and we add one new wrinkle, not wrinkle, but one new fact at the end. The first, this thanks to David Otto and David Doan and other people contributing to literature. This is the well-known employment polarization. You order occupations by the mean wage in 1980. It's employment weighted. And then you look at, in the next 30 years, what happens to the employment share of that occupation. So high number means that occupation grew in terms of how many people are in that occupation. Negative number means that occupation shrank. And this is the polarization. At the bottom, top, employment growth, occupation skill measured by, proxied by the average wage of that occupation. Middle is tanking. That's employment polarization. A related fact is wage polarization. I have to say that this one is much stronger and robust, and also found corroborating evidence from many other Western European countries. Wage polarization, I will not bet my house on it. Depends on when you exactly start and which data you look at. But similar story, same occupation sorted by the 1980 average wage of occupation. And then you look at how much wage growth in real terms did that occupation have. So we're not tracking the same people. We're just looking at what happens to the occupation average wage, kind of slower growth in the middle, faster growth, and not so surprisingly, really fast growth at the top skill level. Okay? And David, Otto, and other people kind of think that this is routinization. So what they have in mind is that some jobs can be basically automated more easily, so machine replacing you, than others. Or it could be offshoring, or kind of you are using intermediate input that is produced from, say, China. So the idea is that middle skill is called routinizable, or it's called routinizable skills can be easily replaced by either machines or cheaper labor overseas. They think, well, there's a correlation, okay? So they kind of try to look at the dictionary of occupation and try to measure which occupations are more routinizable, has more routinizable tasks in it than others. And they find that not only these guys are middle skill in terms of measured by wage, but also the middle skill in terms of wage occupation tended to have a more routinizable component, okay? And this is our picture, yes?
So how can it be so smooth? Are they smooth?
Oh, they're smoothed, like, yes, they're smoothed, yeah. We are basically replicating what following David Otto, and then we just added 5 years at the end. So Otto looks 1980 to 2005, but we are following whatever he does, the same smoothing he does. Okay, this is our picture. I mean, David Otto kind of knows about this, but he doesn't talk about this because he wants to think about polarization as something happening across occupation rather than sectors. But this is what we computed. Same, you rank the occupation by 1980 mean wage, and then you look at in each occupation, some people work in the same occupation, some people work in services, others in manufacturing. And then you look at what fraction of the share of the people in a given occupation working in manufacturing, what happens. You see that overall it's all negative number, consistent with the structural transformation story. The manufacturing is kind of tanking in terms of employment and value-added share and everything. But that is most pronounced in this middle skill level. Okay, so it's consistent. But consistent with what this whole routinization hypothesis, thinking that you have workers, production workers, kind of doing really routine job, and then that's more like manufacturing, and it's being done elsewhere, either machine or done elsewhere in another country. Yes, Matthias.
So aren't you losing many occupations then? Like for lawyers, then nobody would be in manufacturing, I guess. So
be careful. The lawyers work for Apple, right? Apple has their counsels, and then
okay. So
same thing.
So that means if the firm is a manufacturing firm,
yep.
That's the definition. Okay.
Exactly. So we're gonna very good question, because we're gonna distinguish occupation and manufacturing, and sectors. Okay. And this is kind of useful because like David O'Toole company, the occupation people tend to think only about occupation, and the structural transformation people, they want to only think about sectors. But we're going to actually have everything in the model and show that there's one economic force that's driving the whole thing. Okay. So this is the well-known.
On the y-axis,
yes.
Explain what is that?
So take like this. I don't know, like 80%, well, 100%. You have like rocket scientists here. Say, I forget. Like about 40% of them used to work in manufacturing firms and 16 services. Now it's like a manufacturing share came from 40 to 36%. That's what I mean. 4 percentage point drop.
So among
from same occupation. We are not talking about same. Exactly.
Occupation,
exactly. Exactly. And that changed over 30 years. Exactly.
Point.
Yes. Difference. Okay. This is whole polarization story, and then this is one thing we show. That's kind of this is taking us to the next slide, which is structure change. It's so well known. Let me just finish this. Like structural change, so well known. Service red, manufacturing blue. This is improving the share in the economy. Manufacturing shrinking, value added, same story. Yes.
So the graph before.
Oh yes.
So this is where you work, or is this using input-output tables?
No. This is where you work. So census asks, what is your occupation and what does your employer do? What does your firm do?
Okay, so somebody who works in a law firm that mainly does
then the services.
Manufacturing.
We don't know about that. No, okay, good point. That's no way for us to know that. This is a census simple question. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Well, anyways, they are, yeah, it's like, I don't know, if you want to do value-added computation, but whatever we are doing, it doesn't matter. Yes.
It's more related to outsourcing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suppose
That's fine, yeah.
In the
Right.
80s, manufacturing
Right.
firm has a lot of services,
Right.
employees,
Right.
whereas in the 2000s,
Right.
these services.
That's absolutely fine, and that's why I think it's important to think about occupations rather than sectors. Because you're just talking about these numbers, then what you're saying could be a big problem. Hey, these people used to be they are same lawyer, it's just that they used to work in a manufacturing company, now they are in a company doing the outsourcing legal service for the manufacturing firm. So that's misleading, but if you look at occupation, I think it's okay. Then this is the new empirical effect. So we call polarization structural change. The new empirical effect we show a couple. One is, this is a little bit known, like Nazi worked on this, for example, and he knows it, that if you look at people in census and then look at the workers and try to, according to their occupation, categorize them into managers or non-manager workers, the fraction of people who are managers, that has been increasing in the economy over the same time. And then if you compute the manager premium, which is average manager wage divided by average non-manager worker wage, that ratio has been increasing, not surprising. The new fact that no one ever saw before.
So what's the definition of manager?
So we go by the OCC code, so this occupation code, and then it has, this is a very good, important question, and I'm not going to convince you 100%. So it has some easy definitions. You have CEOs and CFO and blah, blah, that's a manager. It's a subcategory of the manager category in the OCC, occupation coding. And then you have, say, manager in a restaurant, like a dining establishment. I think that's like in Lucas panel control model, I think that's the right way to think about it. And we have all the self-employed people, because self-employed people, they are managing. It's not a great business, we learned today.
But that is understand that the size of the average size of firms went down?
Well, the only thing is, so let me actually come back to that answer. I mean, within like 20 seconds, okay. So, and then the only thing that's kind of fuzzy in the middle is this middle level managers. So in the OCC coding, you have human resources manager, purchasing manager, and blah, blah. How do I think of these people? Because we are gonna, in the end, have just like a hierarchy, like two-level hierarchy, managers and non-managers. But obviously, this middle-level manager is middle-level manager, so it's kind of harder to pin down. So yes, so there's, what I can show you is, what do I actually show you? So this is a picture. So blue line, this is manager premium that has been rising in the whole economy. Red line, manager employment share that's kind of rising. I think the peak was like 2005, and then it's kind of actually falling after the crisis. Okay? But if you look at that number by sector, I come back to what I promise I'm going to come back. So service, what fraction of service workers are managers? That's kind of flat. What fraction of manufacturing workers are managers? That's driving the aggregate. And same for the premium. If you look at the average manager premium in manufacturing, it's kind of high to begin with and rising faster than services. So it's like a manufacturing thing. And then, of course, we are asking basically, well, it's like this notion of manager. I mean, what is it, right? So OCC says it's a manager, but how seriously do we want to think about it as a kind of the look at span of control manager? So one thing we did, and then you kind of answer your question a little bit. So what is this? We are looking at two independent data sets. On the horizontal axis, basically, each data is an industry in each year. There's a snapshot. It's a 3-digit industry. And then you look at census. You collect all the people in the census who claim that they work in that industry, and you look at how many of workers to managers ratio is there, okay? And then this is SUSB, so statistical US businesses on the vertical axis. For the same industry, of course, they all use different coding, so there's a really big crosswalk to be done. And we did it. And then for the same subcategory industry, you look at how many establishments there are, and then how many total employment do you have. So you have some sense of, this dot says the log scale, but you have sense of for this 850 industry, you can look at from the SUSB, what is the average establishment size measured by employment, and then you can look at, in the census, just asking people how many workers per manager do you have, and red line is a 45-degree line, and they line up kind of really nicely. So I think I have to, if I take the view that one firm has one establishment and one manager, then what's going to happen is that what you said is correct. Yes, the average established size has been decreasing in the US. And more so, faster in manufacturing than services. That's what the inevitable implication of that. Okay, so this is, I claim that this is what we were kind of excited about. So what are we going to do?
So the average establishment size has been increasing and faster manufacturing. Are you claiming that? Or?
No, it's decreasing. Yeah, it's decreasing. Yeah, exactly. So because I looked at the data for different projects, and all I remember is that actually from that picture, it was more like average service establishments getting larger in the US. It's very gentle, but it's getting larger. And there are relatively more and more service industries, but there's like so service is smaller, manufacturing is larger on average, but there are fewer establishments left in manufacturing. And not only that, so the composition, you say that, then average establishment size in the economy should go down, but what's happening, counterbalancing is the service industry kind of establishment is getting larger in the US. Okay, so no, is that what I want? Okay, so facts. Polarization, employment and wage polarization. We talked about structural transformation, everybody knows it. And then we show something happens to managers and non-managers. Okay? We're going to present today a simple static model, but it's very easy to kind of put into a balanced growth models. But we'll do like a little bit about that at the end, do something about that in the end. But just static model to see what's happening. And I'm going to show that there's something happening in the economy, just one thing, changing over time, that's driving the whole thing. Polarization, employment to wage polarization, structural transformation, and what's going to happen between managers and workers. And my claim is not that we explain everything. It's more like these are topics either separately studied or not studied before, but seems like there's one common force kind of manifesting in these three different dimensions. So that's the story. And at the end of the day, of course, we have to have a quantitative evaluation of how important this force is, but we will kind of have to wait for that. Tim and I are thinking about how best to calibrate it. We'll have some numerical examples today, but that's about it. So, okay, this is, take a look at spin control model, and we're going to kind of twist it a few times. The first twist is that people are born with a two-dimensional vector of ability, your talent as a manager, your talent or productivity as a worker. Okay, so managers are different. So, and these things are not specific for anything, just manager or worker, that's it. Okay. And then they could be correlated, negatively correlated. We don't take a stand today. If you, in this model, actually there's an even richer model that has some interesting ramifications, but we will not talk about that today. So manager is a manager. But worker, if you decide to be a non-manager worker, you have three occupations to choose from: low level, middle level, and high level. Now you kind of see where we are going. We're going to talk about low level workers, middle level workers, high level workers, so that we can talk about polarization. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. And then another twist, we have two sectors. If you look at span of control, typically one sector model, just two sectors: services and manufacturing. And the outputs of each sector are combined using CS with epsilon less than 1, meaning they are complements. Okay? And how are the two sectors different? They are going to be different in how these different worker tasks are combined. Okay? So let me actually tell you, but let me just give you. Then, how is this low, middle, high level worker occupation, non-manager worker occupation are different? This is how they are different. So the low level work, it's not necessary, but it just simplifies our algebra a lot. The low level worker, you are a worker with H, you have ZH, but let's assume that you decide to go to become a worker, not manager. So your H is the relevant thing. You show up at the low skill job or low level job, your H doesn't matter. You just show up. We only need bodies. We don't need how good you are. Okay? So that's like a low level job. And the middle level job is you show up, this is how much H you have, good. You will produce as much as you have H. Okay? It's proportional to your H. The high level job is you show up, oh, I have this much H, but the really rudimentary things we don't need that. Okay? If you want to be a surgeon, but you don't have a medical school degree, you're not going to produce epsilon, you will produce nothing. So that's the idea. Or like I know PowerPoint, but we don't use PowerPoint here, so kind of like that. So why do we do this? This generates, so I said H is not specific to anything. It's not specific to sector, it's not specific to task, but workers who decide to be workers, they will sort into this task based on their H. If you're a really low H guy, this is your best bet. You have really, well, if you don't have a high enough H, then you don't even dream about going here. And then of course in the decentralized economy, the rental rate of human capital here is higher than here, so that only there will be two thresholds, the low guys, middle guys, and high guys, so worker sorting, okay? And then I said something about the sectors being different. This is this ugly part of our production function. How do you produce output? I is a sector, manufacturing and services. How do you produce an output? Well, first, the manager does something, and then the manager combines his own input, Z, with the worker task. How much task worker produce? And what is the worker task? It's CS aggregate of the low level, middle level, high level. And then we're going to assume that this is weight, I is sector, J is the level of the worker task. We're going to assume that manufacturing rely, relatively speaking, more on this middle task than services.
So,
yeah?
so
Yes?
you're not making the high skill guys more complementary to capital, right? So I'm
So-
why capital at all in the model? Is there...
So capital, well, we're going to talk about balance dynamics eventually, but the reason why we have capital this way is because we want to have how workers choose their occupation, like a manager or like a worker occupation. We wanted to make that independent of the aggregate capital stock in the economy or price of capital in the economy. So that's why we use this thing. But obviously, this is ugly enough. But if you really seriously want to think about this skill bias technological progress, whatever, but it's not clear what skill means in this economy because, again, whatever we think about is not really about this H. We're going to talk about this task. One can say something like, well, each task is CES between capital and the worker input, but then some are more substitutable than others. We could have gone that way. We just think, first, we could do it numerically, not a problem. To show any comparative static by hand, we need this property that you have a K appearing this way so that K is irrelevant for the allocation of workers, managers.
The key difference is the intensity of the
Yes,
task.
yes, yes,
across the two
yes.
sectors.
So this is sort of the, this is over time, but this pattern is kind of what's important. So basically, so what we are assuming that this one stands for the middle level task. The intensity in the manufacture of the middle task is higher than in services.
Routinization drive everything.
Exactly. So routine,
Because of this-
very good. So what we're going to eventually argue is that the only thing in the economy that changes, we are going to say that David Otto is right. Routinization is the only thing that's changing the economy. But because manufacturing relies more on or benefits more from routinization than services, it will affect the two sectors asymmetrically. Okay? And then this is sort of, we only saw the difference, but this is basically for each skill level, what fraction of those people are in manufacturing. And then you kind of see it's already higher. Well, it's not really falling, but so that's our justification for saying that this one seems to be higher, relatively speaking. Okay? Okay, so let me actually, the problem, so let me go in 2 steps. Actually, there's a 3 step, but let's go with 3 steps. The first step is, let's forget about sectors. Let's assume that some people are already in this sector. Okay, so one sector, I don't care which sector it is, but people are in this sector. And then, just like this is occupation choice map. So people are different in 2 dimensions, H and Z. Okay, so you could be a fantastic economist, but poor manager, that's possible. So what's going to happen here is that this dimension, these are like a really low Z people, so they don't even think about becoming a manager. So for them, this is the simple one-dimensional sorting, which I said. You have low H, you work in the low-level job. You have a really high H, then you will go to the high-level job, but in between, you will be the middle-level job. Then, if you have a conditioning on H, you have a high enough Z, then you will become a manager. And the indifference map between manager or worker here is flat because we don't care about your H if you choose to be a worker. So it's flat here. Then now here H matters. So you are a little bit higher H guy. Then well, if 2 become a manager, you do better about even higher Z. And then the slope actually goes up there. Okay? And yeah, I already talked about it. The really nice thing about, I shouldn't say really nice. That's too much to say about a paper, own paper. So one thing helped me a lot and also a lot in computation was that basically this becomes within a sector, the matter of allocating people into this occupation from planus, there's no distortion whatsoever, there's a planus point problem, it boils down to a fixed point on this Z hat, H1 hat, H2 hat. And everything, these slopes that fall out simply. And then the beauty of it is that it's a contraction mapping. So it's just like assume arbitrary numbers, and then the equations tell us what should be the correct values, and then you keep plugging in, you get it. It's like I think after the first year in grad school, it was the first time I saw a contraction mapping in action, so pretty nice. So that's why we claim that actually well, I didn't say it, but we claim that it's not going to be a problem to read up. Right now we have like 3 worker skills and then 2 sectors, but it's not going to be a problem to increase to say J arbitrary finite, discrete like J tasks and say N sectors. We could have done that, but we are not going to do it today. Okay. So what I'm going to show is simple comparative static, again, holding fixed the kind of people already in this sector. Okay? So there's some density function in this sector, and I don't let them leave this sector for the time being. And the only thing that's going to happen is, so each task, manager task, low level, middle level, high level task, each task has a TFP term. I'm sure everybody missed it because I didn't talk about it, because I forgot to talk about it. So manager task has this MZ guy, low level has this MZ, M1, M2. So this is task, manager and worker, different level, task specific technology. And in our view, routinization is that holding other things equal, M1 is growing. Okay? It's like somehow middle level task is now cheaper to produce, given K and H, you're going to produce a lot of this middle level task. Okay? And we assume, again, I didn't talk about it too much, but we assume all the CS setup, we assume complementarity. Okay? So elasticity less than 1. So what's going to happen here? Now imagine the M1, the technology of this middle task improved, holding other things equal. I think it's easier to think Leontief combination of these things. Now you have too much of holding fixed the allocation of people within the sector. Now because of the technological progress, you have too much of this task produced. But it's Leontief, it's completely useless. So what you want to do is that you want to send people to the other places. Oops. So that's what happens. Okay? So H1 shrinks. This is the set of people who are the middle-level non-manager workers that's shrinking. That's improvement polarization. Okay? And then...
Why is the C hat changing?
Sorry. Why is Z hat change? Because now you have a work, the way we set up the CS. Now you have a worker task. But now that combined, now holding other things equal, you have too much worker task relative to the manager task. It's just another layer of CS, exactly. So then the only thing you have to do is send everybody. Yeah, exactly. Okay? So that's what's happening. So one thing I want to claim is that here we get improvement polarization is really easy. Wage polarization, you have to define it carefully. So if I define wage polarization as take a guy here, take a guy there, and then what happens there, you look at not an occupation, you're not following occupation anymore, you're following the skill level. You look at what happens there, wage, there's a wage polarization. So the idea is that you were previously in H1, meaning middle level, now you're here. And like this guy, you used to be in the middle level, but now you're here. So decentralized economy, he would not be treating his occupation differently unless you pay more, relatively speaking. So the only problem is, depending on the distribution assumptions and the kind of parameters we have, yes, for given H level, we see wage polarization, but now there's a negative selection, right? So you have these guys who are not particularly high H guy, but now because of polarization, they go here. So if you have a small pool of H2 to begin with, then their negative selection will bring down the average wage of the occupation a little bit. So I deal with it. I show that actually, and then we know how to fix it, but we're not going to fix it today. Okay. The bad news is robots can do your job now. The good news is we are now hiring robot repair technicians. The worst news is we are working on robot fixing robots. And that's the end of it. So you can think of my job was here and then it can be replaced by robots. Oh, there's a new employment of robot fixing technician. I don't know whether you are here with that, but that's about it. So we can talk about that. Now, two sectors. What we're going to do is, so basically within sectors, it's pretty clear what happens. So for the time being, this is the intermediate step. For the time being, fix the set of people who are in each sector, services and manufacturing. If you don't let them move, but you have an increase in this middle-level worker task technology, what's going to happen is, well, this will exactly the same polarization will happen all over. Okay, so I talked only about worker polarization, but the other thing was that now you have more managers, which Juanpa was asking about. Okay, so we got that part too. But of course, output of manufacturing and services are CS complements. So exactly same logic. Holding other things equal, now because manufacturing depends, well, I didn't fix it. Manufacturing depends more on the middle level input than services. Holding other things equal, the same increase in M1, which is not sector specific, has a larger impact on manufacturing than services. Now you have too much manufacturing output. What do? Send some people, managers and workers, to services. Oops, this. So this was what was here. Polarization, M1 increases, and the two sectors are asymmetrically dependent on M1, the middle level TFP. So not only there's a polarization within sectors, but also you see more, I'm exaggerating obviously, so more people move from manufacturing to services. Okay, so that's basically what's happening. And then, yeah, the manager premium, that's what I didn't talk about, I forgot. So the same thing, you are at the margin, you have now become a manager, you used to be a worker and a manager. The only way I can do that in this economy is that I have to pay you more. So that's manager premium kind of sort of increases. So numerical example, again, no effort at calibration whatsoever. So what we get is 47, in this example, particular example, 47% of people are the low-level workers. What is this? 29% of people are middle-level workers in the initial economy. And then the 17% are managers. And then 7% are the high-level workers. It just happened this way. We didn't think about it. And then what we care about is this being in the middle, obviously. And then they are ordered by the average wage in the initial economy. So it turns out the high-level workers, the rocket scientists, are earning a lot more than the average manager. Okay, this is we're ranking by not individual, but by average of the occupation. So we increase M1, and this is what happens. So employment share change. This is the employment polarization. Now you have more guys working in the low-level worker, managers, and high-level worker. But where are they coming from? Well, they all come from this, quote-unquote displaced from this middle-level worker job. Okay? So employment polarization comes. And then this is another picture. For each occupation, again, ranked by their initial state average wage of that occupation, some of each occupation work in manufacturing and other services, same. And then we plot the same thing that we talked about. For each occupation, after this increase in middle-level task TFP, what happens, the fraction of that occupation now working in manufacturing is falling across the board, it's a minus, but the fall in percentage point terms is largest in the middle level because that's where the whole thing started. Okay? And then this is the wage polarization with the caveat. Now I'm just computing what happened to the average wage of occupation before and after. Okay, the good news is, as expected, the average wage of the middle-level worker goes down. It kind of goes up for all the not so high-wage workers. And then it's good for managers, so manager premium increases. The bad news is that, I guess, depends on how you think about it. So, but one thing is that does not make this really polarization is that in this numerical simulation, you see that actually the high-level workers, their average, okay, it's not the same people, it's different people. Just to compute the average before and after, now you actually see some fall in average wage of the high level because now you have not so smart guys entering here, driving down the average. Okay? And that's partly because we didn't calibrate it and we only have like 7% of people here, and then now you suddenly have another infusion of like another 2% people coming in. That's like a big enough drop. Okay? So if I fix it, I think it will, the price, quote unquote, the price effect will dominate. Okay? So it was not pretty clear. So let me talk about what is vertical polarization, whatever happens between managers and workers. The fact that now we have more managers and the manager premium increasing, and those patterns stronger in manufacturing. So I report the aggregate manufacturing before and after. In aggregate, after this technological change, driving the middle-level worker task, you have 2 percentage point increase in the fraction of managers in the workforce. If you only look at manufacturing, that's more like a 4 percentage point. It's faster, like in the data. And then average manager pay also increases here with a premium. So it's like a 6 percentage point, but it's more like a 7 percentage point increase in manufacturing after technological progress. Obviously, what I'm not showing is that, well, you can kind of guess it. The services, the number just smaller than the aggregate, okay? Than manufacturing too. Okay, so dynamics. This is one part. I just can talk about the intuition. Then we have, the only thing I'm going to assume is here. Here is that hold everything as constant, but now we're going to just increase the TFP term of the middle-level workers. That's the only thing increasing. So asymptotically, we're talking about asymptotics now. So everything is constant, but then this M1, the TFP term that gets hitting the middle-level worker task, that's growing. So infinitely rising. So what's going to happen is that occupation disappears. So it's an extreme form of polarization. You just keep moving people out, and then their occupation disappears. The sectors do not disappear. So from the simple manufacturing service structural transformation, because they are relying on sector-specific TFP growth, one sector, typically manufacturing, disappears because of faster TFP growth. But here, sectors don't disappear. The occupation disappears. And once the occupation, yeah. No, I was very careful about it. So I'm, no, okay. So the share of employment and share of value added, right? No, exactly. That's why I'm very careful. I don't wanna. Yes. Think of a really simple two-sector model like Guerrieri and Acemoglu and Guerrieri, or my friend Brera and Kapusky. My friends Brera and Kapusky. In that, the asymptotics is that they disappear. You have a much intricate way of setting up the economy so that you don't have to talk about that, right? So, but within your paper, I shouldn't be talking about this, right? So, I'll talk to you later. Okay. Okay. So let me actually. I think so. Once that this existence of this occupation was the whole reason why manufacturing and services were behaving differently. Once that occupation disappears, they kind of stay. Nobody disappears. I think actually, I wish I had a different example, meaning I just assume that this technology increases, other things remain constant. But I think the kind of data points to the fact that whatever is happening, the managerial technology is growing at the slowest speed. Then you can guess what will happen in that economy. We will all be managers. Uber economy, right? So only independent contractors will live. Okay, so the whole idea about lifetime employment, everything will disappear. We will be independent contractors. That's great. Okay, good. And then let me conclude. So we present you.
You still have 5.
5. I make everybody happy. Okay, so or like Stefan will happy because he have extra 5 minutes. Okay, so we present a simple model. Again, I'm not going to claim that we are explaining everything. It's just that once you think about occupation and managers and worker occupations and sectors this way, you have a sector or sector neutral technical change, sector or worker skill, H neutral, just task biased transformation, routinization, that seems to drive polarization and whatever happens between managers and workers and a structural change. Okay, that's the thing. And then we showed some new facts about this, what happens between managers and workers. That's kind of really, really more pronounced in manufacturing than services. Okay, and then we kind of like the fact that it's the occupation that disappears, not the sectors. Okay, and then I'm not going to talk about that.
Yes, yeah. The key thing is how do you measure this task-specific TFP?
So I think actually, so that's a good question. That's something we haven't really thought about at this point. But I guess you can just go out and try to measure at the micro level data. Right?
So the way I look at it, given my history,
yeah.
I would think that this task-specific TFP provides an endogenous reason why we see sector-specific TFP.
Right.
They give one source of
right.
why sector-specific TFP
right.
are different.
Right.
Now, of course, at the sector-specific TFP, you have many other things that go
exactly.
on.
And sector-specific,
yes. It's hard to differentiate is that, like in the sector-specific TFP, you could also think of technology adoption as part of the TFP.
Right.
And whether that technology adoption is...
No, I think I completely agree with what you're saying. The only difficulty with this basing everything on sector is that even the firms don't know which sector they belong in nowadays. So, exactly. So, just kind of conveniently calling a sector-specific technology change, I mean, that's kind of simple for accounting, but if you think about the microfinance, where that is coming from, I think it's not obvious whether it's clearer. Yes.
I think it's very important to be able to quantify this task-specific
absolutely.
TFP, and then put it to that level
yes.
and then see.
Yes. No, I think thanks. And then there are a lot of questions like, no. Right. No, I think there's a lot of, right. Right. There are a lot of interesting things to ask, like we think about offshoring, like how to think of offshoring. And the model actually, you make an open economy version. Offshoring just means you have another economy with a different distribution of ZNH, and then you kind of outsource. So there are a lot of extensions we can do, but at the same time, I think it's a good question. Yes, we can do all the extensions, but then it forces us to think exactly how can we identify which is the force that's driving. Because as I keep saying, we are not going to explain everything with just one thing changing the economy, but at least if we have a comfortable version that we are kind of calibrated, we can talk about the decomposition of how important this one particular force is that's affecting basically all the sectors at the same time, just different tasks, different